Guys, what you typically do with these, if you're not thinking, is you take them and you stick them into your pockets so that you don't wave them around like a fool. Good morning, BNI Chester. That wasn't too bad, actually. I don't need to do that one again. Thank you. So, as a quick show of hands, who here is to actually get more business? Everybody's handed, including, yes, thank you, Sean. Excellent. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to present better so that you get more business. And the first one I've just done. If you want to get people to understand and listen to what you're saying, you need them to engage with what you're saying. So I got everybody to put their hand up, including Sean, who's usually very difficult at this. If you get everybody to do this and don't accept anyone who doesn't, then you know everyone is listening to you, which means they're paying attention. So I'm going to give you a few tips on presenting. First one, what do you do with these? Shake them. Yeah, I'm not doing jazz hands. These are your hands. What do you do them with when you are actually talking? Now, guys, ladies, you can relax for a second because this is mostly about the men. Guys, what you typically do with these, if you're not thinking, is you take them and you stick them into your pockets so that you don't wave them around like a fool. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with this. Putting your hands in your pockets does stop you waving them about. But if you have change or keys in your pockets and you happen to be stood like we are today with somebody to your right and somebody to your left, and you start to jangle your change and your keys, all the person next to you can hear is Jingle Bells. So if you are a pocket dweller, take anything out of your pockets and put it on the table in front of you to avoid the little bell jingling, that's as far as I'm going to go with that, head height with somebody with their face right next to your groin, okay? Now, what you can actually do with your hands is use them to express what you're saying. Adam's actually very good at this. I was watching him earlier. Adam has his hands together when he's talking, and then he will express a certain point with his hand. Be very careful about this, because you are not an inflatable outside a used car dealership trying to sell cars. So if you are flapping them about like this, it's going to distract from anybody. You're not trying to land a plane, you're just trying to emphasize something that you have been saying. Okay? All understand so far? Yeah. What? Yeah. Better. See? Get them to engage with what you're saying. That way you know they're paying attention. Another tip, when you are presenting in a room, this is quite a big room, you are not presenting to the person next to you on the table because they might be able to hear what you're saying. But Gail over there probably can't. You need to make sure that the person furthest away from you can actually hear what you're saying. Does anybody remember Mike Maloney, who used to be in this room for IT? Mike wore hearing aids. Even in a smaller room than this, Mike struggled to hear what somebody was saying, probably as far as you are from me now, Gabby. And he had to lip read. Now, Mike's not the only person that has problems with hearing. When I'm in a crowded room and people are speaking, I can't hear what they're saying either. I just don't talk about that much. I have to lip read what people are saying to understand it. There will be other people who struggle to hear you. You need to make sure that Dave Tilston over there and Gail Biddulph over there can hear what you were saying when you were talking. Is that okay? Yes. Fantastic. You're learning. I've trained them. Isn't this working well? Now, when you're actually making a presentation and you've got somebody you want to be introduced to, say, for example, it's a name, do not talk for 50 seconds and then mention that name very quickly at the end of the 60 seconds while somebody tries to write it down, and then we move on to the next person because they're not going to get it. And if they don't write it down, they're not going to remember who you asked for. You're not going to get the introduction. Mention that name at the start. So, for example, if I was looking for an introduction to Mark Halstead from Coactive ICT in the BNI South Cheshire chapter, I wouldn't say Mark Halstead at the end. I'd say it at the beginning. I'm looking for an introduction to Mark Halstead. That's Mark Halstead from Coactive ICT. And I would also tell you that Mark is spelled M-A-R-C. because that's important. You're not going to be able to find it either. If I waited to the end, and in the last 10 seconds, and said, I'm looking for an introduction to Mark Halstead from Coactive ICT, or John Kilkenny from Coactive ICT, that's Mark MAS, it's not going to work. Not going to be able to write it down. Be slow with the names, use only one if you can, and do it at the beginning. Now, couple of tips for a featured presentation as well, knowing that we have someone doing a featured presentation today, and I'm sure Stephen's not going to make any of these mistakes, but when you have a featured presentation, typically we have slides, and the slides are on the screen here. However, your audience is here. So if I make the presentation like this, looking at my slides and going through what's on them, I am completely ignoring all of you, and I am not engaging with you. This is your audience. Look at your audience, not what's on the slides. Equally, these slides are a visual aid. You should not have to require them. If you have text on the slides, reams of text on the slides that you are about to turn around and read, what has everybody in the room already done? Read it. So you were just boring them senseless by reading something they have already read. Stephen, you're looking worried. If you have imagery on the slides, please remember the screen is this big. Your imagery should be this big. If you have a little photo in the middle of the slides, nobody can see it. So it's not going to work. Take advantage of the fact you have a massive screen. If you have to put something up, it is a visual reminder of what you are going to say, not a readout of what you are going to say. You know your 10 minutes, nobody else does. If you forget something, nobody's going to know. Only you. If you forget something about your story, nobody is going to know. Only you. And as a final pointer, for those who want some help with presentations, and I send this to all of my team at EngageWeb before we make any presentations internally, there is a cracking TEDx video on YouTube. Did I mention I've done a TEDx? I don't know if I meant, yeah. There's a cracking TEDx video on YouTube, not mine, it's almost as good as mine, about how to avoid death by PowerPoint. So if you go onto YouTube and search death by PowerPoint TEDx, you'll find it. It is brilliant because it shows you how to put a presentation together, which isn't just for BNI, it's also for sales presentations, business presentations, internal presentations, anything that requires PowerPoint, it will help you do better. And if the idea of making better BNI presentations doesn't light your candle, you will make more sales and get more business by doing it this way. That should be something that you want. Thank you.